Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you're all keeping safe and well in the challenging times. I am going to be very, very brief because I really want you to hear from the great panelists later on in the afternoon and from Jake and John and Brett. So just to explain how we've become involved with this, as some of you will be aware, our role as the Certification Unit relates to the government's creative sector tax relief across video games, film and television. But we also administer the BFI diversity standards, and I am passionate about making and supporting the games industry and the screen sectors and making them much more inclusive. Because more inclusive teams make for more inclusive content. And that's why I'm now an Autistica Play ambassador. So why we are running this event again. So during World Autism Awareness Week and as part of the London Games Festival Fringe, as some of you will know, we ran this event last year at the BFI. It was the first time we partnered with Autistica. And so 1 year on, we wanted to do it again. Sadly, obviously, we're doing it all virtually. And whilst it's disappointing not to be able to run the event as we had planned, the upside is running the event virtually allows much more people to join us. You will hear from Jake in a minute. Autistica Play has grown so much in the last year, and that's thanks to him. He had only just started when we did the first event this time last year, and he's done a fantastic job creating #Autistica Play as a brand, setting up the ambassadors scheme, the Play Jam, and the guidance on supporting neurodiverse colleagues. And I'm sure it will go from strength to strength in the coming months and years. So lastly, I'm just going to wrap up very quickly. I want to thank Jake personally as being quite tech phobic. He's managed to set up, yeah, you can see he's laughing, all the digital components of this so we can run the event with me just chipping in saying, oh, should we use Zoom occasionally? And so I really have to thank him because he has pretty much organised all of this. And then with my Games Aid trustee hat on, I just want to flag and thank Michael, Roz and Matthew from the London Games Festival. They've done an incredible job putting on as much of the festival's content online as they can. And I just want to do a little shout out for them because on Monday night from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. they are running a virtual cosplay festival. They're going to partner with Games Aid, which is obviously the video games industry's charity, and Autistica is one of our games charities for this year. So if you can join in the cosplay virtual parade as well, that'd be fantastic, and support Games Aid, Autistica and all the other charities. And that's it from me. Thank you, enjoy the talks and take care.
Thanks, Anna. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, massive thank you to you, obviously, you and the BFI Certification Unit for having us last year and agreeing to have us again this year. It's been so great to have be able to kind of, in this time of uncertainty and kind of everything up in the air and the physical event, like you mentioned, being cancelled,
Yeah.
having a little bit of a wobbly moment and then coming together to kind of get all this done. So we have an afternoon. Well, you're with us for now, and I'm going to be playing some words from John, our CEO, and then we've got a talk with Brett. Brett's going to be presenting some presentations on DARE, Discover Autism Research and Employment, which is our employment initiative. So really hope you enjoyed that. And then we're going to take a short break afterwards around about 3 o'clock. And then we're back at 3:15 for a panel, much like last year, where we have a group of diverse people coming together to talk about the games industry, talk about neurodiversity, and specifically talking about how it is now in the current climate with coronavirus and all that. So yeah, oh, and then obviously after that, we're going to be jumping over to a different platform than Zoom. We're going to be jumping over to Twitch for our after party, where we're going to be looking at the short list of games from our Autistica Play Jam that we held in March. So we've got a whole afternoon to kind of end the week on. So I do hope all of you stick around for our afternoon. By all means, drop in and out. There should be something for everyone. So on that note, I'm going to play a short video from John, who can't be with us physically today, but he was able to record a short message. So I'm going to play that. And hopefully this should go without a problem and you should be able to hear it. But Anna, please do let me know if it doesn't go quite to plan.
Don't ask me, I'm useless at this stuff.
All right, chat, if you could back me up as well, that would be great. Fingers crossed. Yep.
Our virtual Autistica Play event here during Autism Awareness.
Let me restart that.
Hello everyone, my name's John Spiers and I lead Autistica, the UK's autism research charity. I'm so pleased so many of you have joined us today for our virtual Autistica Play event here during Autism Awareness Week. I want to talk to you for a few moments about the work of Autistica and why games are so important to us. We work with our community every day to understand the priorities that they have and work out how research can contribute to meeting those needs. We work across the lifespan from early childhood all the way through into older age, and we support everybody on the spectrum. Ultimately, our research is about changing lives. We want to see better services underpinned by better evidence. We drive policy change, working with government and the NHS to ensure autistic people can access the best possible care. And we provide evidence-based information so autistic people and their families can make their own decisions about what matters most to them. And finally, we run the Discover Research Network, which brings together autistic people, their families, professionals, and researchers. By joining Discover, you can find out about the latest research, you can perhaps take part in a study yourself, and you can work with us to develop new research ideas to support people into the future. This is a strange time that we're living in at the moment. I think many of us are feeling isolated. We're concerned about our jobs or about our finances. We're confused about the new social norms that are arising as so many of us self-isolate. And of course, we're concerned about our physical health and anxious about our mental health. And that's difficult for everyone, but it's particularly hard for some autistic people who found their routines and their interests disrupted and have sometimes struggled to cope. But let's not forget that actually this set of feelings is how many autistic people feel much of the time. And that's why research is vital now more than ever to help us understand how we better support autistic people and their families, whether they're concerned about employment, their mental health, their physical health, or just getting on and doing what they want to do with their lives. And games, I think, have a really important role to play. We know that gaming is often a really important part of a number of autistic people's lives. It helps them connect with others and build the networks that support them, whether they're going through good times or bad. Often they're an opportunity to build a connection with someone and have a common interest, whether that person's autistic or not. And for lots of autistic people, games are a real opportunity to deepen their interests, to practice skills, and to learn new ways to interact with other people. That's why we're so excited about Autistica Play and about the wonderful support that we've had from people who play games and people who make games. So thank you very much indeed to all of you for participating today. It's been enormously exciting for us to see the growth of Autistica Play over the past year. And I know Jake and the team have got a number of things that they're going to be sharing with you. So that's all I'm going to say. And I will hand over to Jake to show you our latest video. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, John. So there we go. There's some words from John, the CEO of Autistica. So yeah, he did say about the video. I think what we should do before the video is maybe have a look at Autistica Play over the last year, because we've mentioned it a couple of times. So for any of you that are here and maybe wondering what Autistica Play is, and you may not know much about Autistica Play, let me just take you through a bit about Autistica Play over the last year. And again, please do remind me, let me know in chat if there's anything wrong, and I'll do my best to answer that.
So Jake, we've had a question already about resources being available afterwards, so yes. I presume we can do that.
Yes, so this this webinar is being recorded, and apologies, the light is changing. My cat has decided to open the curtain. Yes, the resources will be available after today. We'll be uploading them, and we'll share them with all the participants. If you did RSVP on the Eventbrite, then we will be sending out an email next week with the resources and the webinar, so you can have a look after that. Let me see before I get in if there seems to be something else in chat, just to make sure. Oh, okay, great. Just people agreeing and saying, yeah, we need more light in these dark times, and I want to see.
And
the
Joe
cat.
Twist wants to see the cat. No surprise there.
Okay, well, I mean, he's a bit grumpy, but if we are lucky enough for him to come over this way at some point, then hopefully you'll be able to see the cat. He's a handsome guy. So yeah, Autistica Play. So last year we started Autistica Play, and as Anna said, about a month after I joined, we held our first event in partnership with the BFI at the BFI in the Blue Room, which was fantastic, amazing. And Joe Twist from UK chaired that, and we had a wonderful panel discussion. Loads of really great conversations happening that day, and it was kind of a really good way to start off the journey of Autistica Play. And also, at the time, the hashtag was Autistica Gaming, to which Joe enlightened me on the fact that we want to change the terminologies we use. So we use, instead of gaming, we use playing games, and games industry instead of gaming industry. So Autistica Gaming hashtag became Autistica Play hashtag. Just a little thing there. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so yeah, so here's the event last year. Here's the panel that we had, panel discussion. There's John, you've just heard from him. There's Brett, Jade, and Laura. So Brett and Jade will be on the panel in the next section. So if you want to see that, that'll be at 3:15. So yeah, last year we had the event, and it was a full house. It was fantastic. There was some good coverage by Dominic Sacco of Esports News UK. So if you wanted to check more of that, you can see that on our website where this write-up is. So the aims of Autistica Play are three core things. We aim to improve support for autistic talent, increase understanding of autism, and raise vital funds and awareness for autism research. Through Autistica Play, we've already connected a diverse group of people. These are our ambassadors, which Anna mentioned earlier, and also is one herself, which is amazing. So we have a really good group of people. There's a couple of them in chat as well, I believe. Hannah Cass, I already mentioned, who's fundraising for us on Saturday. She is there as well. Yeah, so that's our group of ambassadors. I believe there may be some chat happening now. One of the other things we did as well, we launched the Game Changers. So through the early conversations that I was having with people in the games industry, one of the things that kept coming up was the fear or the uncertainty of how to make the first step. And people weren't really sure. They weren't confident in the fact that they could make a step. They were concerned that tackling something as big as neurodiversity, tackling something as big as autism and the range and the diversity within that, they were worried about making the wrong first step. So what we did is we looked at the research we had, we put it together in a small little A5 leaflet, which kind of just has 9 concepts for people to consider, hopefully gives people a better understanding across a broad range of things that you can do to adapt and become more inclusive and become more understanding. So we released that you can download. That's on our website as well. There's a link here if you wanted to download that. One of the other things that took place last year, which for me was a really important moment, one of our other ambassadors, Dominic Shaw, who we met at the event at the BFI, he presented about Autistica Play at the Games Industry Biz Best Place to Work Awards. One of the things that he mentioned was he was talking about our Game Changer leaflet, which you can see up here on screen. And one of the adaptations to consider is the concept of flippers, which is an alternative to the audio of clapping. You would then do this motion instead to show support, but obviously with no audio. So he did that. He presented it up on stage, and when he finished, the moment for me, which was so impactful, was that the audience that you can see here, the audience, the whole audience, did flippers. There was nothing odd about that, nothing unusual. They understood, okay, for Dominic, this would be the best mode. So they all gave flippers. And for me, that was a really important moment to kind of show that the games industry are understanding and are aware of the inclusivity, and they just need the information. So that's what the Game Changer leaflet was about. Yeah, that was a really great moment, I think, both for Dominic, myself, and for the games industry. I mean, this photo is really great. One of the other things I wanted to mention, I know that Anna wanted to mention it, I believe, disconnected.
Oh, I did. Sorry, I forgot.
That's fine, because then I can cover it now.
I knew you were going to do it as well.
So another thing that happened last year in the early days was there's Anna actually introduced me to Sue He, who is an indie developer studying, and she was creating a game called Disconnected, which is basically looking at a young autistic girl navigating a neurotypical world. Yeah, so we met up with Sue, and together kind of helped to bring together some people that were ambassadors, and together they created the voiceover for the game Disconnected. I'm not sure if this is going to work. I'd like to do this. I'd like to play the trailer for you. I'm hoping. Anna, can you see Twitter?
I can. Yeah, sorry, I was looking at chat as well. Yes, Twitter's.
No, that's great. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that if I change the scene, it doesn't change.
No,
it doesn't
good.
like block it. Fantastic. So yeah, so this is a short video of Disconnected, and this shows the recordings that Sue did at Autistica office, where we recorded some audio from a group of Autistica Play ambassadors. So you'll see them in here, and hopefully, Anna, do let me know if you can't hear it,
Yeah.
and do let me know if there's anything that anything in chat. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna play this now.
My mum would correct me and I'd always have like a new scrape or bruise or something. You have a different brain, and the brain that you have is just as good as everybody else's.
I would be the person always falling over, not catching the ball, not being in the right place. So suddenly, you know, what's different about you that you're suddenly crying and really overwhelmed?
It's those kinds of moments where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have jumped in, or they're looking at me like really odd, or I definitely have had that kind of moment where you see people talking and then you try and hear what they've said, and you go in with a topic and it's like you want to join the conversation, but then they kind of look, like they did in the game, they walked away, or sometimes they just look at each other and then carry on their conversation without you.
You don't know what the picture on the puzzle is, it's just blank puzzle pieces. It's not right to make children feel bad for things like that they can't control.
Do you have any specific moment you can remember this just to overload your feeling?
Gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think just unfortunately very many of them.
If I was to leave a message, I would say just be yourself and don't worry about what other people think.
Jake, I can't
Sorry.
hear you.
I have a microphone here that in order to help me with my control of the mute, I have a button on it that I can press mute, and I've forgotten about it. So that serves me right. So anyway, so that's the Disconnected trailer. The people in there, they're all autistic and neurodiverse, and the game itself, it's really important in what it kind of presents, and you know, we've had it at a few events. The last one was at the was it Film Festival Market? I hope that's correct, Anna. At the BFI.
The Focus conference.
The
Focus
film
conference in at the Business Design Centre, or
I've probably
I know it was at the Future Film Festival.
That's the one. That's
the BFI's education department runs a Future Film Festival, but we expanded it out to games as well, and it was part of their marketplace, and it's aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah.
So, cool. But we also had it at Focus as well in December.
Cool. So we had Disconnected there, and although obviously the event wasn't really about games, it was more about films, and it wasn't really about charity work and things like that, but there were loads of people that were interested in coming over and trying Disconnected, and it was so great to see the majority were autistic women coming over to play the game, and they all had such positive things to say about it. So that was just a really great experience to have. And Disconnected, like I said, it's free to play. You can go check them out on Twitter. And yeah, it's great. It's worth a look. And actually, after that, we kind of thought it would be really interesting to set up a game jam where we could see about having other games like this created. Talk more about that later, I think at 5 p.m. So one of the other things we did last year, which was really important and really impactful, and how games and autism are so connected, is we did something called Relax Mode, which is basically 1 week on from World Mental Health Day. We hosted a weekend which was about people coming together on stream, but kind of stripping away the streams, because often when we stream for our audiences. We stream with lots of excitement and fun and lots of noise, which can be quite overwhelming for a lot of people, and also for ourselves it can be quite draining. Like even doing this, this is quite nerve-wracking because it's the first time. So what we did is we brought people together on the weekend, just kind of ask people to play games that they want to play themselves, not playing games that their audiences want them to play, or do things that their audiences want them to do. Just kind of have conversations about mental health, neurodiversity, and just kind of have a moment where we come all together, take whatever has been bombarded to us on that one day, World Mental Health Day, have a week to process it, and then talk about our key findings of that day over the weekend. And then this here is a screen from Hannah Cass, also known as Retro Princess, the one that's fundraising for us on Saturday. She did an absolutely amazing job. She raised over £1,300 during that. But what was really important was the conversations that were going on, was people talking about their own neurodiversity, their kids, their relatives, their mental health. So it just shows that Twitch, gaming, streaming, it's a way in which now more than ever, people can come together and talk about important things. It's not what, I guess, those that are less knowing of the gaming world, it's not just about playing games and as some might historically say, wasting time. It's a really important medium and an amazing platform. And in the current situation we find ourselves, it's definitely getting more awareness as a platform in ways where people are connecting, people are socializing. And this is something that for a lot of people wasn't like, it wasn't an option. It's not like there is another option. They can go out to the pub with their friends. This was the way, and this is the way in which many people choose to socialize and connect as their first choice. And now a lot of us in this situation are seeing that for the first time, and kind of maybe having a better understanding of what it might be like if you're not as able to go outside as everyone else. One of the other things from last year that I did want to mention, I believe this is the last one because I feel like I've waffled quite a bit, is Games Aid. So for the last 3 years, Games Aid, Autistica have been one of the chosen Games Aid charities, and this is due to all the fantastic people in the games industry voting for the charities that are important to them. And honestly, without this, for the last 3 years, I definitely don't think I would have been making the jump from the games industry to Autistica, to set up Autistica Play. So a massive thank you to Games Aid, and a massive thank you to everyone that's voted. Votes are coming up, so hopefully we can get those votes again this year, and continue that partnership. It's been fantastic, and obviously Games Aid have been great with supporting activities that we've had going on. They've earlier this week actually, Hannah and Marina worked together on a blog post which they put out on Wednesday, which talks about late diagnosis. It starts off quite bleak, but it's got a real positive end to it. So if you haven't read that, do check it out. It's on the Games Aid Twitter account. It's on their website. Just Hannah talking about her diagnosis process. It's really, it's a good read, especially at a time like this. And that's, yeah, I mean, there's my contact information, but you're talking to me right now, or at least hearing from me. So by all means, if any of that was of interest to you and you'd like to get involved with this year's activities, obviously we're going to be planning to have another Relax Mode this year. And at the moment we are fundraising for the game jam that we held in March. So yes, I believe at that point, I am going to check that we have Brett, because Brett did say that he has joined and asked if he's joined correctly. So let me just find him, and hopefully I can bring him in. Promote to panelist. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. We have Brett. Fantastic.
Hey,
Let me
Brett.
just
You've got him
unmute.
on mute.
There we go. Hi, Brett.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Great. So yeah, we just
Hi,
finished
Brett.
off.
Hi.
We're just finishing off there with me talking about Autistica Play, and I think perfect timing. I think if there was anything, let me just check Q&As and chats. Was there anything, Anna, before we jump into DARE?
I've put a note on the chat to follow Zoo and at Disconnected on
Fantastic.
Twitter. We've got Q&A we've dealt with, I think, the one we've had, but if anyone has any more Q&A, please do say, and I'll try and keep track of it.
Yeah, well, what we'll be doing now is we'll be moving over so that Brett can go through DARE, talk more about that, which I already mentioned. And then afterwards, if we have time, we'll have a Q&A. So if you had any questions for me, Anna, or Brett, we'll do that once Brett is finished. And also, if you wanted to change your viewership, you can change it so that it's speaker view only, I believe. I have it set on that on my side. So I think it might be that on your side too, if you wanted to just see Brett, I believe. I might be wrong. So Brett, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. I can give a sort of background about DARE. I did send some slides, Jake. I don't know, is it possible for me to share slides on here, or?
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. You sent them over to me, but I thought you would be sharing them from your side, so you can control
I can do that from my side, yeah.
Perfect. So what you do is at the bottom of your screen, you'll see share screen. And then when you hit share screen, you then choose, as long as you have it open, you choose your DARE slides.
Ah, I see. Right. Yeah. Gotcha. Share.
And there we go. Yeah, perfect. I can see it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Jake. This is really cool to be part of my first sort of broadcast webinar. I'm going to give a sort of background of a few things in my talk. So first of all, I'll talk about what DARE is and why it's important to think about autism, neurodiversity more broadly, and employment. Secondly, I'll share some insights about our data and what we have learned regarding neurodiversity and employment so far. And lastly, I'll also touch upon some of the insights emerging from the recent impact of COVID-19 in terms of how that's affected neurodiverse employees. So I've got to coordinate the switching of slides with my notes, so just bear with me. So what is DARE, and why is it important to understand more about neurodiversity and employment? So DARE is an initiative that exists between the Centre for Research in Autism and Education at UCL, where I'm a postdoctoral researcher, and Autistica, which funds the research. And the focus of DARE is to gather and analyse data to understand the factors that affect the employment for autistic people and for others across the neurodiversity spectrum. We know that autistic people have a huge amount to contribute to the workforce, but for various reasons are either prevented from accessing job opportunities, employed in jobs that aren't making the most of their skill sets, or are poorly supported when they do find employment, leading to extremely low rates of retention. So some things that we do know already are that only 16% of autistic people are in full-time employment, and that's despite over 75% being willing and able to work. And we know that this is a statistic which lags significantly behind people belonging to other disability categories, which is around about 44% in full-time work, which itself is already a disability employment gap to the national average, which has been prior to COVID closer to 77%. However, we still lack the evidence base for really understanding the reasons why there is that gap, specifically for autistic people, which also means that we lack some of the tools and resources to help employers to intervene in that situation and improve employment outcomes for autistic people. So this is bad for the well-being and stability for autistic people, but also bad for companies that are missing out on the talent that autistic people can bring to the workplace, particularly given their unique creativity, their strengths, and their ability to resist normative thinking. Another challenge in terms of trying to change employment practice and improve the well-being of autistic people is the fact that a lot of advice so far has been based on anecdotal evidence. And one of the challenges of anecdotal evidence is that, you know, every autistic person is unique, and what works for one person may not necessarily for another. And that's why, you know, the rationale for DARE came about, which was a need to sort of create a much wider, systematic and consistent and informed approach to using data and really understanding how we can, you know, build the largest evidence base that other researchers and other practitioners can use, but also developed really nuanced insights about how to support autistic people. I wanted to include something, it's not on the slide, sorry, but some comment as well about how this might fit in with the games industry, because, you know, I'm aware that this is a broader topic in terms of autism and employment. I think what's interesting about neurodiversity and employment in relation to the gaming industry is that many of the companies that have already been leading the way in terms of inclusivity have been largely tech-based companies. So, for example, SAP, Microsoft, and JP Morgan have had hiring schemes in recent years that are focused specifically on recruiting autistic talent. We also know that some of the more innovative thinking companies have a higher rate of neurodiversity within their existing employee base compared with the national average. So, for example, Monzo is an internet startup bank where over 14% of their workforce are neurodiverse. And it may be that there's a combination there of technical expertise and more innovative startup culture with flexible working hours that are attractive to neurodiverse candidates, although we will need to gather more data to explore these sorts of issues further to understand more about that. I think I've gone a bit ahead in terms of my slides. I'll give a bit of background about DARE as well. So DARE launched in October 2018. And so far, we have gathered data from nearly 1,000 participants, over 500 of which are autistic, and from across a range of sectors, representing one of the largest evidence bases of its kind in the UK. And that data is ongoing. So everyone who signs up is provided with an ID, and there's opportunities to continue taking part in research at later time points. And so this is a longitudinal study so that we can see people's progression over time, which is really important. In addition to our public-facing research, we've also developed research partnerships with organizations that have national and international operations. So our data is rapidly growing. And this has enabled us to develop some powerful insights about some of the major barriers that autistic people face in the workplace. So, for example, we identified extremely high rates of late diagnostic disclosure, where over 24% of all autistic participants we surveyed were choosing to disclose after encountering a challenge in the workplace. And over 70% were disclosing after they had started a job role. So that tells us a lot about the complexities of disclosure in terms of both trying to gain access to supports, but also the perceived stigma and lack of understanding within organizations about disclosure. And in fact, I think I actually have a slide on that. Yes, so there's a slide on that. So when we looked at the reasons why there was such high rates of late diagnostic disclosure, 85% said that they feared negative discrimination from a lack of neurodiversity understanding. Our data shows that to improve disclosure, there needs to be not only awareness, but visibility of neurodiversity training within organizations. And that training needs to be provided as part of the wider diversity and inclusion training that may already be available. And additionally, another thing that was reported was that the benefits of disclosure aren't really made clear by the organization, whether that's on the job advert, whether it's in the recruitment process, or whether it's starting a new role. And if the organization doesn't know what the benefits of disclosure are, then it's kind of a very good indicator that they're not thinking so well about neurodiversity, and it might not be the best environment for supporting candidates. So I think organizations need to think a lot more about what those types of benefits might be and how they might be positioned to support autistic people in the workplace. To that end, we have produced a report based on adjustments. Adjustments, there we go. So adjustments are changes to the working environment and practice that are designed to make job roles more accessible and allow people to work safely and productively. Our report's available on our website. There's a link at the end of this presentation. It's dareuk.org. And with our report, what we did was we brought together all of the data we had on adjustments, and we found that, I'll move forward again. So yeah, so some other points about adjustments. So adjustments, a lot of them are free or low cost. They're quite easy to implement, and they often work for all employees and not just autistic or neurodiverse employees. But in our data, we found that although 87% of participants surveyed believed that adjustments were critical to their performance at work, 53% of participants reported that they were unable to ask for adjustments, that they were refused adjustments, or that the adjustments they requested were really poorly implemented. So there's a really big loss there in terms of providing the right kind of support. When we looked at the reasons why this was the case, there were two main types of challenge. The first was identification. So most organizations did not adequately understand the support needs and strengths of respective adjustments. And that meant that they weren't necessarily in the best place to match the adjustment to the particular challenges that the employees were facing. There was also the knowledge about adjustments that had been previously used within the organization was not being centralized in a way that line managers and employees could access. So there were communication challenges within the organizations that would mean that it would take a long time to identify an adjustment and then have it implemented. Also, the burden of responsibility to speak up about adjustments was always placed on the neurodivergent employee, who's likely to already have difficulties with communication in the first place. So, there's a quite obvious need for organizations to be a lot more proactive in facilitating that dialogue about adjustments. A second type of challenge was implementation. So it was often reported that there were quite unclear organizational pathways to requesting adjustments. So, for example, you might have to go to your immediate line manager, or you might have to go to someone via HR. And the more circuitous the route, the more stress and further discomfort and emotional drain it can cause for an employee that is already outside of their comfort zone if they're having to ask for an adjustment. There was also perceived stigma associated with requesting an adjustment within a team, particularly if co-workers had a poor understanding of autism and why that adjustment might be making a difference to that individual. And there was often little thought about how to make adjustments sustainable over time when there are changes to working context. So it could be that you need to change location, it could be that the personnel within your immediate team changes. Thinking about how an adjustment can adapt in those different scenarios is very important for the question of sustainability. I think I've opened up actually the wrong slides. That's why I'm slightly out of sync with my slides. Let me just go back. Hold on a sec, Jake. Just need to bring up presentation again, go to share. See if I can find the right slide. Bear with me. I had a slide with resources, and it's not there on this document. It is here on this one. Maybe I need to close it and open it.
I just realized I've been on mute the whole time.
Oh, sorry, sorry, I've just been...
Sorry, I was just saying that I've taken your screen off sharing so you can find what you're looking for. If you need a couple of minutes, I can I can just put you on mute while you find it, and I can go through the COVID-19 resources we have on our website and also share our campaign. It's up to you if you've got it now.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to do anyway. So if you want to start doing that, I will. Perfect.
All right. Well, if I give you a couple of minutes, and then I'll just share my screen on our campaign, and I'll play the short video of our Ways to Cope campaign. I'll just play that, and then we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes, and you can.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll be ready. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I'll just put you on mute then, so you can carry on.
Cheers. Thanks, Jake.
Cool. Okay. Right. Well, while Brett finds his slides, we are going to take a look at the video. I was going to play this towards the end, but I think now is the perfect opportunity for me to play this for you. Okay. And also, this is probably a great opportunity for you guys, if you've been thinking about questions that you wanted to ask Brett, you could take this moment to put them in the Q&A in preparation. So once we are finished and Brett is finished, then you have your questions ready to be answered. Okay, so this is the video. What I'm going to be playing now is the video that we, as Autistica, scramble to put together with the changing way in which we're all trying to work. And we've come up with the campaign hashtag Ways to Cope. So this is a compilation video of how us at Autistica are trying to cope with our current situation.
Morning, everyone. Morning. How's everyone finding week 3 of the coronavirus lockdown?
Right, morning routine, kettle goes on.
So, decided to come out for an early morning run. We're doing a hill climb at the moment, so I can't really talk.
To keep routine in my day, I like to start every morning by walking this pair.
Which is a little bit of routine we keep in our day, every working day at 3 o'clock, where someone from the team puts up a song they like, and everyone else listens in and dances like no one is watching, because no one is watching. There have been lots of great songs, but today's is definitely the best. This is a wonderful little bit of Disney, who's going online now. Oh, yeah. Excuse me? I've got to go dance.
Nice one, Ed. Our researchers also recommend that it's really important to keep up our special interests while in isolation, whether that's practicing on our favourite musical instrument, playing our favourite video game, or doing a bit of cooking. My special interest is watching Ed dance while his camera is still recording.
I've been making a point of listing and writing down the positive things from each day. Just kind of reminds me that life goes on and good things are still happening.
The coronavirus has forced everyone, including everyone here at Autistica, to embrace new routines and a different way of life, which we know can be very distressing, especially if you're autistic.
That's why we've created a hub of evidence-based resources on our website, aimed at helping autistic people and their families through this difficult time.
We've also launched a campaign for World Autism Awareness Month. We want you to share your top tips on how you're coping, and then spread some fun by taking on a creative fundraising challenge to raise a bit of money for autism research. Go to our website for more details. Thanks.
Are we doing it now?
No, we're just waving to your daughter.
All right, okay. All right.
Thanks, Anna. So there you go. So that is the video that is available on our social channels. That is a shortened version with subtitles. So if you'd like to see the full video, which is basically that, but with more examples of how Team Autistica are finding ways to cope, you can find that on our YouTube channel. And then, yeah, as Simon said, we are hoping to hear from all of you as well on how you're coping. I know that some of you have. I saw a couple of people getting involved yesterday, which is fantastic to see, specifically from the games industry. So by all means, do join in. The hashtag is ways2 with the number 2 cope, C-O-P-E. So please do check that out on socials on Twitter. And then if Brett's ready, then I won't share the resources yet. Brett is ready. Okay, so I'm going to bring Brett back, and he can share his screen, and we can go back into DARE. Also, before I do that, I do see that some of you are adding your questions to the Q&A, which is fantastic. Thank you for noting that the questions are for Brett or not. That's very helpful. So I'm going to hand over to Brett now.
Hear me okay?
Yes, I've just unmuted you.
Oh, you just unmuted me. Okay, great. So I'll answer the questions as well verbally after I finish this last slide. So obviously, COVID has been an incredibly stressful time for everyone, and if you're out there and feeling stressed, we've been thinking a lot about how we can leverage the data we have to provide supports and resources for people. So one of the things we've done is we've produced a guide about some of the challenges that autistic people face, which employers should be aware of, which is available on our website. So that's the first second hyperlink. Yeah, that's the second hyperlink there. And in fact, it does need to be updated because we wrote that on the 23rd of March, and already, the lockdown's become a bit more restrictive since then. There are also resources for managing mental health, in particular anxiety, which many will be feeling from such an uncertain time. We've had really nice feedback from our resources that they work for not just neurodivergent employees, but for everyone who's feeling any kind of mental health issue at the moment. And so those are linked into the article there, but you'll also find more links as well on the Autistica website, which has a area for the coronavirus. And something else I've been doing as well was I've been looking, I ran the mental health component of our survey again last week to see what the difference is between participants from prior to COVID-19 to after COVID-19. Looking at the data we've gathered, obviously the situation has led to increases in anxiety, particularly around job security. People are reporting much worse sleep and worse diet as well. But what's interesting is that all employees, regardless of their diagnosis, are now experiencing levels of uncertainty and anxiety, which are a bit more similar to what specifically autistic people were experiencing on a day-to-day basis prior to COVID-19. So things like social distancing measures, having to avoid people, and the feeling of isolation that can come from not knowing what the rules and norms are around it, sort of engaging with others outside now. These are features of autistic experience that are more familiar, that other people are now encountering for the first time. And so whilst this is a very stressful and difficult time for everyone, it is interesting from the data side of things whether it's enabling people who are not autistic to have some kind of understanding of what it's like to have to navigate that level of anxiety about the world on a day-to-day basis, and have to question some of the rules and norms around what is appropriate behavior, and the stress that goes with that as well. So those are just some early insights that are coming from our data so far. And as I said, with the adjustments as well, we have a link there at the top there to our report on adjustments that lists 65 different types of adjustments that neurodiverse employees have reported using, which I'm going to look at updating as well, particularly focusing on how to navigate the challenges of working from home as well. So with that, I can probably come out of this screen share and come back in and answer some of the questions that I think came up. So start from the top. We have a question: is there a 5-year plan for DARE? What does success look like for this project? That's a great question. I think there is a 5-year plan for DARE. Most longitudinal projects assess, first of all, asking employees if they do need adjustments for the interview experience. Specifically, things like sharing the interview questions beforehand with all employees is something that means that autistic candidates won't be unfairly disadvantaged, because you know, that challenge, that in a social situation where there's an increase in pressure and anxiety, being able to retrieve your own memories and apply them appropriately to what's being asked can become more challenging for autistic people. So being able to share the questions ahead of time, it means that everyone provides more precise and accurate questions. So often, you know, when I've said this before, employers have said, you know, we can't share it for some and not others. And, you know, the solution to that is sharing it for everyone. I think also it really helps if the employers have the CV of the candidate with them as well, so that when the candidate needs to refer to something in their CV, that they have an understanding that everyone's on the same page and they can see what's going on. I also think that stepping outside of that, employers need to think more about how to assess people, because the trouble with an interview is that it's a social situation, and if you struggle to read faces, or you have that anxiety about meeting someone new in an unfamiliar place, you're going to be significantly disadvantaged, even if you have the right skills and qualities for the job role in the first place. So, for example, when we looked at types of recruitment method that neurodiverse participants preferred, I think a work trial was one of the ones that scored higher. So that's coming in for a week, for example, and just trying out the job role and becoming more familiar with the environment and being able to actually show the qualities of what you need to complete the job, rather than having to answer within the social interaction of an interview the questions about how to do the job. So there are lots of things that can be done there around that interview process. Something else as well I've been doing with research alongside Bath University is looking at common types of interview questions and seeing if we can reframe them in a way that is much less misleading. And so we've done some really good research on that, which will be which we've submitted for publication, and hopefully we'll be able to update on in the near future, not too far from here. So I'll probably better move on to the next question. Is it relevant for small businesses or other non-work places like social groups, teams, volunteer groups? I think that means is DARE relevant for small businesses? Or if I've understood that correctly. So, oh, are you answering them, Jake? Is that why it's moving about?
Sorry, I'm just the ones that you have answered.
Yes,
I'm making sure that they've been removed and gone into the answered column. So all the answers that you see are the ones that you have yet to answer.
Okay, great. So yes, this last question, I think if you mean is DARE relevant, so DARE is open to everyone. Anyone in the public can take part. And the idea is that we do want to gather data from across a huge variety of the population, so across all working sectors, across different size businesses and everything. If it's adjustments to the workplace, then again, I think, you know, even if you're a small business, or even if you're taking part in a social group or a volunteer group, you know, this sort of base level of knowledge about how to support people that may have, you know, a hidden difference, a hidden diversity that you can't see, I think is really important. I think one of the challenges that we often face is that people have a lot of assumptions about others based on cultural representations, based on social norms. And the challenge that neurodivergent people have is that their difference can't be seen from the outside. And I think, you know, whenever you work in a space that has that diversity, whether it's a charity, whether it's an organization that's, you know, very clued up on neurodiversity, you see that it doesn't take much to be able to suspend all those biases and actually have a much more open approach to understanding what that difference might be and how you can support that difference. So I definitely think there's something there about a sort of nationwide culture shift in terms of how we understand and appreciate the value that other people bring to our lives and our workplaces. And last question, are there any resources that game studios can use as a guide to start us off on being more autism friendly? I think, as I mentioned before, there's the adjustments report, which is a very good resource to get started. And to one of the ideas of that report as well is that actually it isn't an attempt to prescribe what to do, but rather describe what has happened within our participant pool, so that there can be a much better dialogue between the organisation and the particular candidate coming in, with the idea that you can select from the variety of different things we've discussed and the issues in terms of how to make them successful over time, something that will work specifically for that individual. We're in the process of creating many more resources based on our data. There are also links on the dareuk.org website, so there's a resources section, and if you go in there you'll find links to also other organisations that have produced resources, and so we're definitely sort of networking in that sense, putting together what different companies and organisations are doing across the world. So I know that there's a lot happening in Australia and the US as well at the moment, who we've also been talking to. So hopefully, if you keep checking back on that page as well, you will find that an ongoing useful centre point for being directed to things you might want to find out more about. So yes, I think that's that. Thank you for your questions. They were very good questions. Oh, and Anna has a question. Yeah.
Can you unmute? Yep. Thank you. So we had a question on Twitter, because I've been doing a bit of tweeting, and it was about.
Oh, great.
Can we get are your slides going to be? Can we make them available to people? Okay.
Yes,
cool.
I'll make the correct slides available to everyone.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brett.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So the things that Brett's been speaking about resource and all that, I've put links to that in the chat. So if you are in chat, do click over to them. There's one for the resources. There's also one linking through to the ways to cope page. That once we're done here, then I'm going to just quickly go through that page as well and just highlight some of the resources and some of the things. So yeah, thank you so much, Brett, for going through there. Really appreciate it. I do want to say that at some point the recording stopped. I believe it may have been when you shared your screen, because we didn't do that tick of approval thing. So whatever has been missed from this webinar, we're looking to replicating it in some way. If it is Brett's slides, then as Brett's already said, he'll be updating them and we'll share them in a different way. But whatever we do have from this webinar, I may have to edit it a little bit to make it clean, but we'll present whatever we have recorded, and for the rest of the day I'll know to check out. As we said at the beginning, this is our first time doing this kind of thing, so please bear with us. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much, Brett. I don't know whether you wanted to take a break because you're back with us at 3:15, or
yeah, I'll go get some lunch if that's okay, and then I'll
of course. All right, well, enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back for the panel at 3:15.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, let me just, how do I do this? Panelists, there we go. Well, he's gone, that's fine. I was going to put him into attendees. Right, so we may actually end up ending a little bit earlier, which is not a bad thing, because I think there's been lots of really interesting and informative information that's gone on so far, and I think we could all do with a nice little comfort break before we're back for 3:15 for the panel. But before we go, I just wanted to share, where is it? I wanted to share with you some of the things that we spoke about. So now I just need to find it. There we go. So you will find the link to these pages in the chat. But if you did want to have a look at what Brett was talking about, this is the page that we have on Autistica where we collate resources on coronavirus. So if you're looking for ways to cope with uncertainty, there's this here. Tips for managing mental health during coronavirus. This has some fantastic tips. There's also some from members of our community as well. Yeah, and then for more information on our webinars, the coming up webinars will be information here. And then the one that Brett was talking about, impact of coronavirus on employees, you can find here. And then also that video that I played earlier, that's part of, not that, thank you. That's part of our World Autism Awareness Month 2020 campaign, which is My Ways to Cope. So you can check this out by following the link there, autistica.org.uk, get involved, World Autism Awareness Month, My Ways to Cope, or you can follow any of the many links on our social channels that I'm sure you'll see on Twitter, Facebook, things like that. There's the video that you've already seen. But yeah, when you scroll down here, you know, we've got a template here so you can create a tweet. If you are on Twitter, please do share ways to cope. Again, these are ways to cope that can help everyone, not just autistic people. And I think it's really important that we share our information on how we're all coping with certain things that we're dealing with. And then, yeah, there's, sorry, my brain just died. There's more information you can click through here to find out more about My Ways to Cope. And there's also a click through here that if you do feel like fundraising for us during World Autism Awareness Month, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that. Obviously, I'm most interested in this one right here, which is Autistica Play. So if you did want to play some games during the month and fundraise some, raise some money along the way, that would be amazing. We do actually have Brain in Hand that is currently fundraising for us today. They started at 11 AM today, and they're fundraising for us for the next 24 hours. So if you do play Minecraft and you wanted to join them, again, you can find that on Twitter, on my Twitter, Level Up Jake. They're on there and they're going to be there till 11 AM tomorrow morning. They're building a Wild West frontier, and they need help from other Minecraft builders. So do join them. And they're fundraising, and they've done pretty well so far. I think they've achieved over 50% of their original goal, which is fantastic. And then also there is Hannah Cass, Retro Princess, who's also fundraising for us tomorrow. And at that point, there's 2 more events that are happening today as part of this Autistica Play Autism in the Games Industry event in partnership with the BFI Certification Unit as part of the London Games Festival Fringe events. So at 3:15, we will begin our panel discussion with a group of panelists that is chaired by Des Gale, who is the chair of GamesAid. I believe Anna will be back with us. Yes, okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm not going to be on the panel, but I'll be there to coordinate, take pictures, tweet.
Fantastic, cool. So we've got a nice little team going on. And then we'll be back after that. So that'll be from 3:15 till 4:15, including the panel and a Q&A afterwards. And then after that, we'll be moving over from Zoom to Twitch, our Twitch channel, Twitch/just Autistica. And there we'll be going over the shortlist from our recently completed Game Jam, which actually, if you'd like to do something during this break and you don't have anything planned yet, then you can always click over to our Autistica Play Jam page. And then down here, you can click here and see all the games. And there's a whole bunch of different games that you can play through. So, you know, why not have a look at that? But we'll be back at 5 PM after the panel for this, where we'll be talking through the short list of games. Very excited to announce that. And on that
We've
note,
got a question.
Oh yes, okay, great.
Sorry, it's one. Well, it says 2, but it's from the same. So, what are the highlights of the last few years for Jake and Anna in terms of gains the games industry has made in terms of neurodiversity and acceptance? So, I can't say for the last few years, because I think it's mainly for me in the last year since we've been working with you, since you set up Autistica Play, and it's become a much more prevalent across the games industry. You got any thoughts, Jake?
Well, I mean, the question doesn't specifically say about autism, Autistica, or autism awareness. So, you know, if there's any other highlights that you have for the last few years, because the question is, what are the highlights of the last few years for Jake and Anna in terms of gains the games industry have made in terms, oh, sorry. There's a follow-up question in terms of neurodiversity and acceptance. Fair enough. Yeah, so you've answered yours. I'll just answer mine, my mistake. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely. So when I was in the games industry, it was the roles of public facing, and often it was about traveling all over the place, which was an amazing experience. Had a fantastic time traveling around, going to all these events, hosting things, and I recognized there was a lot of neurodiversity, and a lot of what we do as a games industry can be quite exclusionary on many different levels. And I thought it was really important to kind of start that change. And I think one of the things, like with Dominic presenting at the Games Industry Biz Awards, and then without even asking, the audience responded in kind with the flippers. Actions like that, it shows that the games industry is growing and it's evolving. As we all know, it's evolving and growing all the time. And I think now it's just the conversation around neurodiversity and the inclusivity of that is kind of right up there. Like with the games industry census from Yuki, that coming out, there's some great information in there, some great data as well to kind of back up what we've been talking about as well, specifically for the games industry when it comes to mental health. And then there's also the Raise the Pledge, which is another fantastic initiative launched by Yuki, which is kind of as an industry coming together, much like with Brett when he's talking about DARE. Instead of us all individually doing stuff and trying to make things work together as an industry, together as a community, we can make changes that are beneficial and share that information and create a society, create an industry that is more inclusive across the board. So I think that has been a really cool thing to see, coinciding with the birth of Autistica Play. Games industry taking steps and making industry steps become inclusive, I think has been great.
I think we're also seeing when events and conferences, they're being a lot more aware about having quiet rooms and quiet spaces for people, which I think is a really good step in the right direction. Not all of them, but I think now people are seeing that. And again, going back to what you're saying, obviously the diversity census and the fact that we now have a Safe in Our World, a video games mental health charity as well. And there's advice there for anyone if you're struggling with the COVID and just in general too.
Yeah, great. I think when it comes to the quiet spaces, like Gaming the Mind, Checkpoint, Autistica have been with them at like EGX and things like that. So yeah, it's really good to see those kind of things happen. And yeah, I think just it's such a great journey that we're on. We're 1 year in. And I'm looking forward to see how Autistica and the games industry collaborate in 2020. So yeah, I think on that note, I don't think, is there any other questions?
There's one more question. Do you think the public perception of games has changed over the years, and do you know the gender split with who plays games?
Well, I mean, there's data out there. I mean, the concept that games is for those that I guess aren't really in games, the misconception, I guess, is that it's a young adolescent male, when data shows that I believe it's a woman.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong on some.
We could be wrong.
I think it's in the 30 to 40 to 50. It's a higher age bracket than you would imagine, predominantly female. And one of the perceptions that we've just seen, there was a lot of stuff pre-COVID about, the damage of World Health Organization damaging games. We've now seen in the middle of this pandemic, the World Health Organization celebrating the fact that it's an opportunity for you to play games with your family and how important they are. And Yuki have put out the games you can play with your family. So there is a change there, but that's only literally in the last few weeks. So I'm hoping that will have a positive benefit consequently to the pandemic.
Exactly. Right. So
Dominic has just said, look at the Yuki diversity census if you want to see the split on the dev side.
Yeah, cool. So there you go. So yeah,
Thanks,
the census is a great resource, so do check that out as well. That's on the Yuki website. You can also find that on their social channels as well, along with the Raise the Game pledge that I mentioned. Do check that out too. And on that note, we're going to go and get ready for the next event. So do grab yourself a cup of tea, toilet break, whatever you need to do, and we'll see you back at 3:15. So that's it.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Thanks for joining us. Please come back.
Yes, please.